So we are recording. Thank you, everyone. Good morning to this webinar about transportation services in Victoria for Royal Roads University students. We have an exciting morning today, so stay with us. So before we start, some housekeeping items. We're using the Zoom platform. It works best in Google Chrome or Firefox, and for better performance, it helps to close down your other applications. We want to invite you to interact with us during the presentation by using the chat function and the reaction function. You can ask questions and make comments during the presentation, and we will make sure to address them at the very end of the presentation. This session is being recorded, and the link will be sent by email to those who registered in the session. If you did not register and would like to receive the link, please send us an email and we will make sure that you have a copy. We will also have the live transcript option on, and you can turn it off anytime you click on it. So we want to acknowledge that Royal Roads is located in the lands of the Songhees and Esquimalt families. We're very grateful to be able to study, work, and live in this beautiful place where Indigenous and non-Indigenous people get together to learn and to understand the history, present, and future scopes of Indigenous people. So today we have a busy agenda, but before we get into the agenda, I would like to introduce you to the two amazing panelists we have invited for this session today. I would like to introduce you to Prapti Jadhav, who is a Student Engagement Associate at Royal Roads University. Hi, Prapti.
Hello everyone. Happy to be here.
And Doniel McNabb, she's also a Student Engagement Coordinator at Royal Roads University.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
And we also have Kelsey Phillips, who's going to be helping us in the webinar, answering any questions you might have as well. Thank you, Kelsey, for being here. So to talk about the agenda, we're going to be covering today a few topics. We're going to be talking about how to get to Victoria, what is the public transportation in Victoria, owning a car, cycling in Victoria, walking in Victoria, and carpooling. So stay with us. So how to get to Victoria? So whether you are already in Canada or abroad, you can arrive to Victoria either by air or by water. There is no bridge connecting Vancouver Island to the mainland or to any of the smaller Gulf Islands. The fastest way to arrive to Victoria is by air. So we have the Victoria International Airport that is located around 25 kilometers north of the city of Victoria, which is about 30 minutes from downtown. It is the 10th busiest airport in Canada. It has 120 flights a day throughout North America. Some of the airlines that come to Victoria are WestJet, Air Canada, Pacific Coastal Airlines, Air North, Flair Airlines, and many other international airlines. You can connect through different cities. In the States, you can connect through Seattle, through San Francisco, Honolulu, and in Canada, you can connect through Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Saskatoon, Kitchener-in-Waterloo, and other smaller cities in British Columbia and Yukon. You can also connect through some cities in Mexico. Now, another way to get to Victoria is through a seaplane. That gets very exciting. We have the Harbour Air airline that has direct flights from downtown and South Vancouver to downtown Victoria. The ride in the seaplane is about 35 minutes long, and I wonder if Prati, Doniel, or Kelsey have taken the seaplane anytime in their lives. The price of the ride ranges from 129 Canadian dollars to 315 Canadian dollars, depending on the time and the day of the week. Likewise, we have Kenmore Airline that has direct flights from Seattle in the United States to Victoria. And the ride is about 45 minutes long. Have you ever taken the seaplane, Doniel or Prati?
I have taken it a couple of times. It's one of my favorite ways to travel between Vancouver and Victoria. It sometimes can be a little bit bumpy if the weather isn't great, but it's a great experience. It's nice flying over the Gulf Islands, great views, and it's shorter than the ferry. So that's why it's one of my favorite ways to travel to Vancouver.
Very convenient. What about
Very.
you, Prati?
I haven't the chance, but that's on my to-do list, to be honest, bucket list, I would say. I haven't had the chance so far.
I haven't had the chance either because I'm a little bit scared of the bumpiness, but I think I will in the next year. Anyway, that's if you want to take the seaplane to get to Victoria now. But if you want to arrive by helicopter, you can do that as well. It gets fancier. So we have the HeliJet International, which is a helicopter service from Vancouver Harbor to Victoria Harbor, and it's available daily. The ride is about 35 minutes long, and the cost of this helicopter service is between 235 Canadian dollars to 375 Canadian dollars for one way only. That's why it gets a little bit fancy. You can also decide to arrive in Victoria by water. And this is one of my favorite ways to arrive in Victoria by using the ferry service. We have the British Columbia ferries. They have about 47 terminals, and they cover 25 routes, including the one connecting Vancouver to Victoria. So you in Vancouver would be going to the Tsawwassen terminal, and then you would arrive in Victoria to the Swartz Bay terminal. The ride is about 1 hour and 35 minutes long. The price of a one-way ticket is $18 with 15 Canadian cents. And if you're driving, $18 with 15 18 cents Canadian, if you're traveling without a car. But if you're traveling with a car, then it will be 95 Canadian dollars with 40 cents for the regular vehicle. I think this is, as I said before, is my favorite way to arrive in the island. The views are amazing, and I've even seen whales and seals. What about you guys? Have you had the chance to see some whales while you travel in the ferry?
I haven't, but I heard folks cheering, so I knew there were some whales there, but I missed it.
Oh.
Unfortunately, me either. I haven't had the chance. Yeah, I missed it as well.
I have. It's an amazing experience. You can also use the Black Ball ferry line that is also known as the Coho, the MV Coho, and you can use it to arrive to Victoria from Port Los Angeles in Washington, the United States. The trip takes about 90 minutes. It's very short, and the cost is about $22 US without a vehicle, and if you are coming with a car, it's about $74 US. You can also arrive in Victoria by using the Clipper. That is a ferry service that connects Seattle, the city in the States, to Victoria. The ride is about 2 hours and 45 minutes, and the cost of the Clipper is $119 US for the standard fare, one way only. It's important to say that you can book any of these means of transportations online or by phone. Please make sure that you book with plenty of time in advance to ensure that there is availability space, and you can expect a beautiful, comfortable, and safe arrival in Victoria with any of these choices we have given you so far. So now, once you are in Victoria, or even in Vancouver, and you decide to come by car or by charter, you can do so by taking the Connector, which is a charter bus service from different points in Vancouver, in the mainland, to Victoria and other cities in Vancouver Island. The prices depend on the location, but they could range between 50 to 90 Canadian dollars for a one-way trip. So many students have asked us about Uber, if there is Uber in the island. And the answer is no. We do not have Uber in Victoria, but we do have an app that is called Lucky to Go app. It's very new. It is a licensed ride-hailing company, and it's the first authorized provider of ride app services at Victoria International Airport. It is very similar to how Uber works. Riders can choose their vehicle type, track their driver in real time, and receive digital receipts. Passengers can choose to pool share and share a ride with up to 2 other riders on the route and split the cost or book a private car for the ride. So this is something that you can do. So you just download the app and you will be able to use these services. You can also rent a car, and there are several car rental companies. I have them in my screen. The prices range from 35 Canadian dollars to 70 Canadian dollars a day, or it could be even more, depending on the time of the year, whether it's a high or low touristic season, the type of car, the company you're renting it from, so it varies. Make sure that you do your research and choose the choice that is right for you. So some of the car rental options are Enterprise, Hertz, Avis, National, Budget, Thrifty, Alamo, and Island Rent-A-Car Rentals. So I've put also the phone numbers in case you want to use any of these car rental options. By taxi, you can also arrive in the island by taxi, and these are some of the most common taxi cabs we have in Victoria. Bluebird Cabs, Yellow Cab, Victoria, Uptown Taxi, Peninsula, Esquimalt, Sydney Taxi. They are all safe, and prices can range from 20 Canadian dollars to 90 Canadian dollars for a one-way ride from the airport to Royal Road University, depending on traffic. Now, if you're going to go to another destination, it could be cheaper or more expensive, depending where you go. So now I'm going to hand the virtual floor to my colleague, Donielle McNabb. She's going to talk to you about public transportation. So Donielle.
Thanks, Ariadna. Perfect segue into public transportation. So you've learned a little bit about how to get to Victoria, and now we'll be talking a little bit about how to commute while you're in Victoria. Next slide, please. Perfect. Righty. So one of the main ways to get around Victoria is through BC Transit. So BC Transit is our bus system here in Victoria. Typically, when you get passes on BC Transit, this is one of the questions we get very often. The passes that you get here in Victoria, it's worth noting that you're not able to use those passes, say, for example, if you go to Vancouver. So if at any point in time you have passes that I'll talk about shortly in Victoria, you cannot use those while you're in Vancouver. They're exclusively for travel within Victoria. So we do have quite a few bus routes in and around the RRU area. Most likely, once you get here, you'll have an opportunity to go through and see which bus is closest to you to come to campus, as well as which bus is close for you to get to anywhere else that you need to get to on the island. So the bus routes nearby campus would be the 52, the 39, the 43, the 51, and the 50. You may have a few other infrequent buses as well, such as the 61, that you can also learn a little bit more about if you head to the BC Transit website, but I'll focus on the main ones here on the slide. So the 39 and the 51, they tend to run on weekdays to and from the University of Victoria. So if at any point in time you'd like to go to the University of Victoria, you can take either of these buses. And of course, there'll be other stops along the way. So for example, I can take the 39 if I'm heading home, and then I connect to the 14. I live in New Royal, so that's one option. So you may find that you won't have a bus that's directly to where you live, but you may have to connect from another another bus to one of these. So for the 39 and the 51, they both stop outside the campus. There is a bus stop at the main entrance on Souk Road. The 52 is a little bit different. So the 52 is most likely what you'll take if you live in the Langford and Colwood area. And it comes on campus and stops at the bus stop across from parking lot 4. Once you get on campus, you'll know what parking lot 4 is. It is really that first parking lot that you see when you head on campus to the right-hand side. You also have the 50. So the 50 doesn't necessarily come to campus, but it's close enough. So you can take the 50 and get off on Gulfstream Avenue. And you can either hop on another bus, whether it's a 39 or 52 or 51, or you can walk to the university. It's going to take you approximately about 12 minutes to walk to the main gate. And depending where you are on campus, it will be a little bit longer. So for example, if when I used to take the 50 as a student and I got off on Gulfstream, it would take me on average maybe 20 minutes or even more to get to class if I'm heading to, for example, the Sherman Gin building, because it's a little bit further away. So what you can do when you're planning your trip is to be as specific as possible. I find that Google Maps is very great at pinpointing certain locations on campus so that you have a more accurate timing of how long it will take to get to the classroom. You also have the 43, another bus that runs infrequently. So I think it only runs in the mornings and the evenings. So maybe about 5 to 6 trips per day. And it comes to campus via Belmont Park and stops at the bus stop in the Hatley Castle area. It is the only bus that goes to the bus stop in the Hatley Castle area. And the 52 is the only bus that goes to the bus stop at the top of the campus across from parking lot 4. Now, to learn more about other bus routes and, whether you want to learn about their frequency, the schedule, you can download the app or check the BC Transit website, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So the cost for the passes, you have a few options. So you can get a day pass. A day pass will cost you $5, and you can ride the buses all day with a day pass. It doesn't matter how many buses you take or where you go in the Victoria area, that $5 will cover you until midnight. And if you find a bus driver who's nice enough, he or she or they may allow you to use your pass beyond midnight. You can also get a monthly pass. So your monthly pass will cost $85 if purchased off campus. But if you purchase on campus, it will cost you $77. So at the welcome desk here on campus in the Learning and Innovation Center building, you can get subsidized passes. So you find that if you do buy your monthly pass on campus, it will be a little bit cheaper for you. There's also the option to get ticket sheets. So you'll pay $22.50 and you'll get 10 tickets. And you can either use those tickets for single fares. So a single fare is just one bus ride, and that's $2.50. Or you can use 2 tickets to purchase a day pass. So those are the options as far as passes are concerned. And also, if you have a temporary or a permanent disability, there is an option for you to access specialized bus services. It's called Handy Dart. So they provide through BC Transit accessible door-to-door shared transit, or it could be fixed route services for anybody who has a disability. However, if you would like to utilize this service, it's not something that you can just utilize. You'll have to go on their website, register, and then you can make the appropriate plans with BC Transit from there on out. Next slide, please. So there's one more pass worth mentioning, and it's the U-Pass. So the U-Pass is another bus pass that students have access to. The difference with the U-Pass is there's limitations in who can access it at this time. It may or may not change in the future. We hope that it will, but currently the U-Pass is only available to full-time undergraduate students who are studying on campus. So once you're in an undergraduate program, enrollment will be automatic, and then you will pay mandatory annual fees, and this will be based on the number of months that you'll be on campus in classes. So if you, as mentioned, if you're eligible, you'll be signed up automatically. Typically, the total cost you can find in your program's payment schedule, because of course, your program will know how many months you'll be on campus for classes. And typically, you're charged $21.25 each month your U-Pass is valid. So as you can see, $21.25 in comparison to $85 or $77. Pretty heavy discount, because we do have that purchasing power through RUSA. RUSA is our Royal Road University Students Association. And if you're an undergraduate student, you are a member of RUSA and you're able to get that benefit. Typically, if you get a U-Pass, you can get your U-Pass at the welcome desk as well. So the same place that you get the BC Transit, the other BC Transit passes, and it's simply going to be on your, it's going to be encoded on your student ID. At least for now. I do believe there are going to be changes in the future, but for now, you can get it on your student ID, and then you can use that pass immediately on the transit service. May I have the next slide, please? And I do see a question in the chat. I'll quickly answer because it's just tied to what I said. At this point in time, graduate students are not eligible for the U-Pass because they are not members of RUSA. That is something I know we are working assiduously to change. Not sure when that will happen, hopefully sooner rather than later. But RUSA will have to have a referendum. And once that passes, then graduate students will be able to access all the wonderful benefits of RUSA. But at this point in time, unfortunately, that is not possible. Alrighty, so travel planning in Victoria, BC Transit specifically. So there are quite a few ways to plan your trip if you'll be taking BC Transit. So you have the Transit app, which I use frequently. What I like about the Transit app is that it provides real-time trip planning information. So whenever I'm heading anywhere, whether it's to work or I'm going out, I typically key in my destination in the app, and it will let me know the various routes that I can take. So I do have 2 buses where I live, so it lets me know which bus is coming at what time, what connections I'll have to make, how far away the bus is. It's not always 100% accurate, but I'll say as somebody who uses it frequently, it's probably about 90 to 95% accurate. So that's typically what I use when I'm traveling, and it's for the most part helps or just gives me an idea. Sometimes after a while, you kind of commit to memory unless there are changes, because sometimes there will be changes to the schedule based on the season. But for example, the summertime, the times may be the same. So you'll know that every morning a specific bus comes at 8:04. But you also want to make sure that you're still checking your app just in case there are delays, the buses have been rerouted, or there are any cancellations. There's also the BC Transit website. It does not provide real-time information, but if you'd like to say, for example, print a schedule and take it with you, or print a map and take it with you, you can use the website. Google Maps is similar to the Transit app in the sense that it does provide real-time trip planning information. So what I do when I'm traveling, I typically toggle between the Transit app and Google Maps. Sometimes I'll find that Google Maps has better estimates than the Transit app, or vice versa. So I'll use both to make sure that I have as accurate as possible information when I'm traveling. And if that's something that you think works for you, then I suggest that you can do the same as well. Next slide, please. Alrighty, so bus etiquette and tips. This is not an exhaustive list, but just a few that we have extracted here to share with you. I know I'm from Jamaica originally, and taking the bus is a bit different from taking the bus here. So some things I had to learn when I got here, and it may not be the case for you. It may be the same in your home country, but in case it isn't, we thought we'd highlight a few things. So courtesy seating is available on the bus. It is typically in the front part of the bus. So for anybody who has a disability, if they're using a mobility aid, so whether that's a walking cane, or if they're in a motorized vehicle, they will typically have the right to that space. Or if there's anybody who's traveling with a stroller, a baby stroller, they'd also be able to use courtesy seating. So that's something that you want to be cognizant of. Most folks tend to try to avoid the front, but if there's no one there who should be using the courtesy seating, you can, but just be mindful that if somebody does come on the bus who requires that space, you will have to relocate to another part of the bus, so they'll have that space available to them. Seats are for passengers and not things. This is also one that's on the BC Transit website that they try to highlight as much as possible. When I first came here, and people still do it, but with proper bus etiquette, you shouldn't. You'll have folks who will probably put their bags on the seat next to them because they don't want anyone sitting next to them. But particularly when the bus is very full, it would be great for folks to be able to sit down and also maximize the space in the buses, because if most of the seats have bags on them and a lot of people are standing, that's not very great for anybody who's traveling. And then some folks may end up not being able to come on the bus because the bus seems fuller than it actually is. Also be considerate when listening to music. You have some folks who may come on the bus with speakers, and it's advisable not to do that. But also, you may also have headphones that are loud. I know my headphones are loud. Typically, when you have them on, you don't know they're as loud as they are, and they're still disrupting folks around you. So even if it means taking it off and listening to see how loud it is, we just ask that you be very considerate when listening to music on the bus. But this is not to say you don't have to listen to music. I always listen to music. I just try to be mindful of those around me. The buses here have bike racks, which is great. So if you'd like to travel with your bike, or if you're traveling from a distance and you'd like to do a portion of it on the bus, a portion on your bike, feel free to do so. The buses do have bike racks that you can utilize. Once you're on the bus, it's advisable to stay behind the red line. You'll see the red line typically at the front of the bus. It is for your safety, and the safety of those around you, because one, if the bus breaks suddenly, you don't want to be flying through the windscreen. You don't want to be blocking the mirrors that the driver is using to navigate the road. So try as best as possible to stay behind that red line. Typically, the buses will not pick folks up if it's too full, because it's also their goal to keep folks safely behind the red line. Currently, switching to a little bit about COVID, masks were mandatory on the buses. They're no longer mandatory, but if you prefer to keep wearing your mask, that's not an issue. Either one goes on the bus. And lastly, smoking. So there's no smoking that's allowed on BC Transit buses, so be mindful of that. You're welcome to smoke wherever, when you're on the ground, when not on the buses, as long as it's a designated smoking area. You may find that some buildings will tell you can't smoke close to the buildings. So that's not just for buses, but be mindful of where you smoke, when you smoke, if you smoke. Next slide, please. So some other forms of transportation worth mentioning. So Ariadna mentioned a little bit earlier about Uber. It's always great to reiterate this point because it's a question that we get a lot. So we don't have Uber or Lyft at this time. Don't foresee it coming to Victoria anytime soon. It's something that they've been trying to do and it hasn't been working out. We also don't have trains or subway stations here. So your options really would be whether you're driving or you're cycling or taking the bus or cabs, that's typically your option. As mentioned earlier, we do have several taxi companies. My go-to tends to be Yellow Cabs because they do have an app that I can use to book my trip through. It's not the same as Uber. I can't pay through the app, but it's still kind of great to book a cab and be able to track your driver in real time. So that is the reason I use Yellow Cabs, but they're all safe, they're all great, and they're all very affordable. They are metered cabs, so it depends on your charge based on the distance and the time of your journey. So there aren't typically like flat rates to say from Royal Road to the airport. One day you may take, so for example, I took the taxi from the airport yesterday and it only cost me $50, and I've taken the taxi to the airport and it cost me $70 because it depends on traffic and a whole bunch of stuff. So you want to be mindful of that the prices may change, and then of course it depends on you if you decide to tip your driver or not. I don't think it's customary. Maybe Ariadna probably can let me know, but people do it and some people don't. So I guess it depends on the person. Ariadna, what do you think, Prapti? Is it customary to tip?
It depends on the service. If you receive an exceptional service, I tip. If not, I usually give cash if I like the service, but not necessarily. Like, I don't think that they expect you to tip.
Yeah, in my experience, if as you know, you mentioned like it depends on like if there's some extraordinary service. So I have given tip myself sometimes when they have been very kind, but not I don't see it as a customer. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for your input. There you go, folks. Alrighty, and the last thing I'll mention is special bus systems to travel to the mainland or up island. And Ariadna mentioned one before, so you have the BC Ferries Connector, which is great if you would like to try. It kind of breaks down, or limits, I should say rather, how many transfers you have to do, because you just go on the BC Ferries Connector, it takes you on the ferry. Once it's time, you board the bus and then it's straight to where you're going. As opposed to when I travel just with public transportation, I have to take like 3 buses in Victoria to get to the ferry. Once I'm in Vancouver, I have to take another bus and then a train. So of course, the connector is much more convenient. but it costs more. So it depends on what you're looking for: comfort, convenience, price. There's also the Island Link bus. It's one of the options if you'd like to go up island, but you don't have a vehicle or you don't have access or you choose not to drive. That's one option. If you'd like to go to, say, for example, Tofino or other areas, you can use the Island Link bus. And I believe there's another one called Vic Connector. Don't quote me on that one. I'm more familiar with Island Link bus, but you do have options if you would like to take a bus to other parts of the island. Next slide, please. Alrighty, so owning a car and driving in Victoria, which is another topic of interest for our students. So next slide, we'll talk a little bit about driving in Canada. So if you are coming to Canada and your goal is to drive while you are here, the good thing is you don't need to apply for a local driver's license immediately. If you have your license from your home country, you can use that license as long as you remain a full-time student. Now, if your license is not in English, it will need to be translated officially, and you'll also need to have that with you. Other documents you want to ensure you have with you at all times if you're driving with your home country license would be your student ID, a copy of your study permit, and proof of registration on RRU. So that could just be like, for example, your student ID. You do have the option to apply for a BC driver's license if you'd like. You can apply through Insurance Corporation of BC if you meet the requirements. And there are different processes for getting a BC driver's license. So the process depends on where your original driver's license is from. For example, drivers from some countries may be able to get a license without any extra tests, while others will have to do tests. You may need to do a knowledge test or a road test or an eyesight test. So once you get here, if you'd like to get a license, make sure you do the necessary research to find out exactly what it is that you need to do if you would like to get a BC license. Another thing that we stress is to make sure that you only drive an insured vehicle while you are here. You can get universal auto insurance through ICBC as well. So ensure that you get that before you start driving. You can get a quote from ICBC, and your quote will be based on things such as your experience driving, if you have a crash history, the kind of vehicle, etc. So those are some things you definitely want to make sure that you're thinking about right off the bat if you're planning to drive while here in Canada. And you can also access parking on campus as a student. So if you're going to get a vehicle, you can park on campus. It will be at a cost. And I find that the longer the period of time that you get a pass for, the more affordable it tends to be. So for example, a day pass is $8, but if you get a weekly pass, it's $16.24. A monthly pass is $37.52, and an annual pass is $123.20. So you'd have to see what works best for you based on how frequently you come to campus. You can determine which option you'd like to choose. Next slide, please. So purchasing a car is another big thing. So the cost of the vehicle that you choose to purchase will depend on the type of vehicle. So you have the option to purchase used cars or a new car. Used cars I've seen for as low as $2,000, and just bear in mind that these are estimates. New cars I typically see for about $23,000. So these approximate values can be higher or lower, but there are a few things that you want to make sure you're thinking about when you're purchasing a vehicle, whether new or used. So it's key to do the necessary research before you purchase a vehicle. Not because it's new, it means you don't need to do as much research. I say do as much research as you can to make sure that you're choosing the option that works for you. So for example, if you're going to be purchasing a used car, some of the research that you want to make sure you're doing is getting, for example, purchasing a vehicle history report. You want to make sure that you're inspecting the vehicle itself, the physical vehicle itself. You also want to make sure that you're doing the proper process of transferring ownership of the vehicle to yourself. And then most importantly, you want to register your license and insure the vehicle once you get it. Cheaper options aren't always better, but you will find that there are a lot of affordable and dependable options available to you. It may just take time. So you don't want to see a vehicle that's $1,000 and you think it's a great steal or great deal, and you just go right ahead and purchase it. And then a week later, you find that you have issues with the vehicle. So make sure that you're you know, as much as you can before you commit to purchasing, because the last thing you want to do is get a vehicle that's unreliable and leaves you stranded at any point in time. That's not what we want. For a new vehicle, you still have to do research. So you want to make sure you're thinking about things like safety features, fuel efficiency, what are your purchase options? So whether you're going to lease or otherwise, what's the resale value? If it's something that you're thinking you could potentially sell in the future, and also take it for a test drive. There's an option for you to take it for a test drive, see how it feels, see if it's comfortable for you while driving on the road. Again, before you commit, because purchasing a vehicle, particularly a new vehicle, is a huge investment. So you want to make sure you get the one that works for you. And then also, as with a used vehicle, you will need to register a license and insure your vehicle. You can purchase your vehicle from dealerships. So there are a lot of new and used dealerships that are available in Victoria. You have some individuals who will also go to the mainland, for example, Vancouver, to get more options there because there are other dealerships there. So again, it really just boils down to doing your research and seeing what works best for you and what you like and what you want. Next slide, please. Righty, so if an accident occurs, we hope that when you're here, you never meet in an accident, but things happen. So if an accident occurs, some of the things that you can do, you see here on screen. Again, not an exhaustive list, but just a few things to point out. You want to call 911, particularly if individuals are injured. You want to make sure that they're getting medical attention as soon as possible. Move the vehicles, but only if it's safe to do so. At times, it won't be safe to do so. So you want to make sure that you're not, if it's not possible. Take photos of any damage and license plates. You want to, at that point in time, you take your photos, you exchange information, record vehicle information of the vehicles involved. And then you also want to contact ICBC, which, because you're most likely need to do if you have a claim. There's a link here on screen that you can't access, but if you type it in, or if you go to the ICBC website, it does have a document that tells you what to do if you do meet in an accident with more details, and it lets you know what the best way forward is should that happen. But again, we hope it never happens while you're here. Next slide, please. Alrighty, so roadside emergency. Again, something we don't want to happen to you, but life happens. So there are several companies that do offer roadside assistance, such as Roadside Assistance British Columbia or British Columbia Automobile Association. And typically you can use these services if you have your vehicle breaks down, if you have a flat tire, or even if you locked your keys in your car, they'll help you with that. And you can make a claim through ICBC for any expenses incurred, but you'll need to make that claim within 12 months, and you can report your claim whether online or via mail, whichever option works best for you. Now that we're talking about when things can potentially happen where there's a breakdown or a flat tire, sometimes these things are unavoidable, but sometimes things are avoidable if you do have routine maintenance. So that's another thing you have to think about once you have a vehicle here. Maintenance can cost up to $1,500 for a vehicle that drives 20,000 kilometers per year. Again, these are approximate values. So it could be more, it could be less. You may find that one year you just have significantly less expenses. Another year you may have more. So it really does depend. But that's something you also want to make sure you're budgeting if you do decide to get a vehicle while you're here. There are several locations where folks can go to have maintenance done on their vehicles. So for example, if you want to get an oil change, you have some places where you don't have to book an appointment. You'll just drive through and in 10 minutes, your oil is changed and you're good to go and you're on your way. So there are quite a few options. Again, it's going to depend on the location, so the proximity to perhaps where you live or work, the cost of getting maintenance done in that area are things you want to think about. And other routine costs that you may want to consider too, particularly now because gas prices are insane, is gas prices. So on average, gas is 221.9 cents. In Victoria, which is extremely high in comparison to other areas. We hope that will go down eventually. Don't know when it will, but that's per liter. And the good thing is you have some websites such as Gas Buddy, and you can use those websites to find the cheapest options that are available to you. So I think that's pretty much it for me as far as driving in Canada is concerned, or specifically Victoria. If you do have any questions regarding any content I shared, I will be monitoring the chat and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And over to Prapti.
Thank you so much, Danielle, for your presentation. And Prapti, please.
Thank you, Danielle. It was insightful. So we move ahead with cycling in Victoria. My name is Prapti Yadav, and I'm working for the Student Engagement Team as Student Engagement Associate. Next slide, please. Can you guys hear me? Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Cycling in Victoria. So Victoria is Canada's cycling capital. The city's cycling trail system connects to our campus. I must admit that Victoria's compact urban environment and relatively flat topography makes the riding very good option here. So we'll touch base on major aspects of things you might consider if you're preferring to cycle in Victoria. So the first question that might arise is where to cycle. So where to cycle? Cyclists are allowed in all highways except designated freeways. So cycling facility in the city includes AAA route, which basically means all ages and ability. That includes protective bike lanes, shared use neighborhood bikeways, multi-use pathway, as well as signed bike routes, advisory bike lanes, painted bike lanes, and buffered painted bike lanes. So pretty much everywhere we can cycle except some designated freeway. So I would really recommend you to check on the website what are those designated freeways. Second, license requirements. So the question which as an international student myself, when I came to the country, I was wondering, is license required to cycle? So to answer that, there's no requirement, specific requirement to cycle, or there's no special permit required. However, we need to be mindful that cyclists have the same rights and duties as a driver of a vehicle. So that is something which I would be mindful if I am if I'm deciding to cycle here. Where to buy cycle? One of the websites which I would really recommend is Visitor in Victoria webpage. Under that, if you can navigate to bike shops in Victoria, this webpage has a long list of all the bike shops in Victoria. Pretty handy, and I would really welcome you guys to have a look on that website. There's an exciting program which is tied to the buying of the cycle. So this is a re-bicycle program. This is ideally for kids. So if you are having any kids, and if you want to have sort of an exchange program, please look into the website. They have some pretty cool exchange offers for kids bicycles. So that's something I would really encourage you guys to have a look on. What to wear when we are cycling, that's pretty sort of detailed information I would like to put here together, because that includes a little bit of safety, dress for weather, and as well as how do you plan your ride before ahead. So dressing for safety, avoid wrap long dresses and skirts, baggy trousers, pant cuffs to keep them from getting caught in the chain. Tie up all the loose fabrics, use pant clips or leg bands, add a chain guard and wheel guard to your bike. We really recommend you to wear bright colored clothing, which is reflective material, just for safety point of view, or a safety vest to make you more visible to other road users and reduce collision risk as well. Additionally, please wear gloves to protect your hands in case of a fall or from a blister. Weather in Victoria can be sometimes unpredictable, so dress for the weather. Use warm, waterproof and windproof capes and jackets to keep cycling in all weathers condition. Dress in layers to accommodate temperature in changes. In cold weather, we recommend wearing gloves that allows you to operate the brake levers and gear shifters. When it rains, wear waterproof shoes or add the shoe cover to booties to keep it dry, basically. So that was all about what to wear. Planning your ride. there are some apps which would help you to plan your ride. I have personally not used these apps, but I know friends who have been using cycling. So Bike Maps, Google Maps, Komoot, and Strava are one of those popular app tool which you might consider using while planning your ride. Additionally, recommendation here, be roadworthy, give your bike an ABC checks, meaning please check your air, brakes, and chain inspection before hitting the road. Know where you are going basically. So those tools, those apps would be handy. Additionally, very important point to note here, know the law. Because before planning the ride, we want to know the law. Learn more about the BC Motor Vehicle Act in on the website, which is cycling, which obviously talks about cycling the law. It is on the BC government website. Furthermore, an important question which we always think about, we have a cycle, but where to park? Where do we park our bike? So the best place to park a bike is a secure location, such as bike locker, bike rooms, or garage. Some car parkers have a bike rack and are monitored, which can also help you to deter theft. If you don't have access to secure location, park and lock your bike in bike in a visible area. Avoid leaving it in the same area for an extended period, such as overnight. In urban areas, on street bikes, racks are often available and high visible. The Bay Center offers a Bay Center that's located in the downtown, offers anchored bike racks in our well lit enclosed parkades that are patrolled by uniformed security. If you go to the Bay Center, they offer secure bike cage parking and change room facility as well, and they charge approximately $30 per month for that. So that's something, if you want to have a look, you might as well go to the Bay Center and buy yourself that facility for monthly pass. Additionally, secure bike parking. So secure bike parking, the city itself has parkades located close to each parkade entrance and exit. There are public bike parkings in the Bay Center, as mentioned earlier. They provide monthly access fee, and there are also private secure bike storage at various building locations if you're planning to travel. Last but not the least, register your bike. This is something quite interesting. I have again not used it myself personally, but it is ideal that you register your bike beforehand, just so that it is returned in case the bike is stolen. So register your bike on Project 529 Garage, get a unique shield, and again register your bike on the website, which we will be providing at the end of the session as well. I think that covers, but yeah, last but not the least, cycling in Victoria. So here is the useful link which I was talking about. So most of those topics which I've touch based is available on How To Guide, which is BC Cycling Coalition. That gives a really a foolproof holistic view of cycling in Victoria. Very handy. That's a guide which provides everything and anything about cycling in Victoria. Additionally, Victoria Transportation Walk, which I found it handy as well. And of course, not last but not the least, the government website, which provides you all the legal duties and responsibility of a cycler. Again, if you're preferring to travel to campus riding to cycle, we also have bike routes. The bike routes, the city has capital regional district cycling map as well. There are bike racks in campus, and there's also shower facility which is available on recreation center as well. Just to note, bike racks are located outside all building on campus, with covered bike racks in front of the Grant and Millward building, between the Grant and the Nixon building, and in front of Recreation Center as well. Shower facilities located in Recreation Center and Learning and Innovation Center too. So that covers about Victoria. We would move ahead with next slide, please. All right, walking in Victoria. Walking in Victoria is a great way to get around the city. Personally, for me, I prefer walking. I choose to walk quite a lot by myself. So the city, I would say that Officially, the city really prioritize, pedestrians over all travel modes. As a citizen, as a pedestrian myself, I found that the fellow road users have been very kind when we are walking. They have been mindful of anybody who is traveling, who's actually walking on the streets. But again, safety is in our hand. We want to be mindful in checking the signals on street. 2 points to note here. If you are if you are planning to walk to the campus from the downtown location, it's approximately 2 hours, 37 minutes. 12 kilometers walk can be something which you might consider. And the nearest city, if you are considering to rent out, would be Colwood and Langford. Just to give a little bit of brief description about the location from Colwood, it is approximately 27 minutes and 2-kilometer walk. So that's pretty okay if you are a walker. And then Langford, it's around 47 minutes, and in kilometers, it is 3.5 kilometers. Additionally, there is a lot of variety of trails and pathway that also provides great opportunities to explore the city. Walking or hiking may involve potential risk of injuring yourself and getting lost. So it is important to take the proper precaution to ensure your safety. Prepare and be cautious of wildlife animals. If going on a trail, wear bright colored clothes at night and wear comfortable shoes. You never know when the weather is going to change. You never know when you're going to have to run away from the wild animals. So be prepared. Although you can hike year round in Victoria, I must sort of put a note here that the warmer weather means that it's a perfect weather for hiking, especially if you're a beginner. So all round year, you can walk. I prefer walking all round year, but yeah, this is the time of the year now. I might consider to walk a little bit more in detail and in depth, to be honest. So that is all about walking, and we may move to the next slide. All right, sorry. So I missed this point here. So there is some popular walks in Victoria, which is narrated on the slide here. Sonji, I have not personally been to, unfortunately, any of this walk. However, if you wanna plan your walking, these are some popular walks where many folks do want to visit, and it is one of those tourist attractions as well. Next slide, please. Interesting. So carpooling in Victoria, that's something which is very popular among students and among ourselves as well. So to start with, what is carpooling? It's a concept. So carpooling is a concept. It is also called as car sharing, car riding, and lift sharing. Is a sharing of car journey to that more than one person travel in a car and prevents the need from others to have to drive to a location themselves. Point to note here, we must not, it should not be confused with end-to-end car sharing and ride-hailing services. So carpooling helps private car owners find ride matches with the same route and work or school schedule to share car journeys on a regular basis. If you know that you have a neighbor or your co-worker or any students traveling to the same location, you might want to consider arranging to carpool or ride share. The benefits of carpooling, it is an easy way to reduce cost and stress on your commute. Make extra cash on the side, cut your environmental impact. How beautiful is that? And take advantage of high occupancy vehicle lanes to get to the work faster. Where to find carpooling options? Carpooling can be an option whether or not you own or drive your own cars. Please search online for private carpooling or ride sharing services in Greater Victoria. They help match car owner with passengers with the same route and schedule to share a commute. Here are some useful links on the screen here, but I must also put a side note that always check and verify that the driver and the vehicle details match to that of the driver information received in the app while booking, because safety is in our hands. So always make sure that we are booking the app while keeping our safety as priority. That was all about carpooling. I think this is the end of the session. Over to you, Ariadna. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prapti, for sharing those very interesting tips about walking in Victoria, cycling in Victoria, carpooling. It's absolutely fascinating. So now is the time for questions. Do you have any questions about how to get to Victoria, either by plane or by ferry, by taxi or by charter, seaplanes? We have explored using the public transit. We have explored all means of transportations to make sure that you have all the information required to get here, to get to Royal Roads and study your program, and to get around Victoria as well. So thank you again, Prapti and Donil. And I don't see any questions in the chat, so I will then close the session. But before I do so, I would like to make sure that you have this contact information of our enrollment advisor. So if you're in Canada and you would like to know more about our programs, please contact our domestic enrollment advisors at learn.more@royalroads.ca or by phone. And if you are abroad and you want to know about our programs, please contact our international enrollment advisors at learn.more.international@royalroads.ca. You can also connect with us on WhatsApp. Just scan that app and it will go directly to a WhatsApp number, and we will be able to answer all your questions. So thank you once again for joining us today, and make sure to check all these online services we've given you, all these websites, when you plan to come to Royal Roads. Anyway, thank you again, and see you here at Royal Roads. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.